Welcome to Connecting the Community podcast. I am your host, Marge Andre. I will be connecting you to people, organizations, and events that create community. I am creating this podcast in Richmond Hill, an eclectic and very culturally diverse community with lots of trees and streams and interesting people, just up the hill from Toronto. On this podcast, I'm talking with Michele Watson, Partnerships and Outreach Coordinator of Find Help Information Services, or 211, of the Central Region. Welcome, Michele.
Hi, Marge. Thank you so much for having me here today.
I am very much looking forward to our conversation. I've got lots of questions for you, and there's just I feel like so many people need to know about what you're doing. I think it's so important. But Michele, first, introduce yourself and tell us how you got to be working with 211.
Okay, thank you. I will. I've been working directly for Find Help 211 since April of 2020. And yes, that was right at the start of the pandemic. I have been a longtime sector partner working at the United Way of Durham Region in their information and referral program. And so very familiar with the data, with the system, with answering calls and so forth. And so when the pandemic came along and Find Help was, and 211 calls to Find Help were, going through the roof, I was asked if I would be able to help out and come on over and answer the 211 lines. And so I did that. And that was a baptism by fire. So I answered the 211 calls for about 5 months until things sort of settled down a bit and staffing was arranged and rearranged so it could work for the system. And so then I was asked if, and the program transferred. So Information Durham became part of Find Help. The name Information Durham has been retired now. And we're all part of the same system. We always have been. It was just one of those things, And so now we are part of 211, the 211 system. My colleague from United Way, Christine, is still editing the data that belongs to Durham and some other things that she's doing as well. So I've been working with the partnership and outreach team since the fall of 2020. So that's how I came to be doing what I'm doing. Okay. And I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, just is curious. There had been a helpline for Richmond Hill many years ago. It got retired into this, so I'm thinking it's
the same attrition that's happened across the province over the years, and a lot of the people that I've worked with on data, they're still there doing it. They just might be doing it under the umbrella of a different organization.
Yeah. Yes. I think we're trying to get more efficient in doing this. So yes, definitely. So what really is 211? And when did it start?
Well, I believe the 211 system started in the States, but it's been in Toronto since 2002. So that seems like a long time. You were probably surprised to hear that, but it has been in Toronto since 2002. And so we celebrated 20 years last year. And by about 2012, 2013, the whole integrated system across Ontario was set up so that everybody in Ontario could dial 211. Mm-hmm. So it was a process. And we're just hoping that everybody will understand, and maybe this podcast will help to get the word out more that you can make the right call to 211.
Yeah, definitely. It is a phone call, like 211, sort of like 911, but it's also much more than that. Like there's a website, you can text, you can chat, a live chat. So it really is very, very accessible.
Yes, that is what it's meant to be. It's meant to be accessible to everybody. So you're right. Anybody can call 211 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And also, so we connect people In addition to a call, people could text and chat. Those hours are not 24/7. They're 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday to Friday, and 9 to 5 Saturday and Sunday.
Mhm.
People can email us as well. People can also search online. All the information, all the data that we have about programs and services is available 24/7 as well to people searching online at 211central.ca.
Yeah.
So yes, and accessible to, you're right, we want to be accessible, especially to those people who need support getting connected. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Definitely. There's a lot of information on the website. I've found it to be well laid out, very intuitive to navigate. So I really encourage people to go and look at it. And if you know of people, if you are having any issues, go check. It makes sense to check it out. It's free.
yeah.
It's there. We do have resources, and I think we should be using it. And
Yeah.
the word I like to you.
Oh, may I just say, I just wanted to say too that, even though we've said what we've said and you understand, I just wanted to be very clear, so what things do people find out from 211? They get a real person if they call, or chat or text, and they're going to find out about things like food banks, meal programs, income support, financial assistance, mental health support, housing assistance, newcomer immigrant services, and more. So that is the type of social service or human service information that we connect people to. I just wanted to be clear on that.
Yes, thank you for that. So it's it's you. A lot of services are listed there. I like the word navigator. Like it's a good way of navigating what our community has to offer. Lots of different people, different organizations. It's a way of letting people know that they exist. So, but 211 is national and it's subdivided up provincially and by regions. So, can you talk any more about how it's subdivided?
Of course I can, yes. So we at Find Help Information Services, we serve our 211 Central program is serving Peel, Toronto, York, and Durham. And in addition to those services, during the pandemic, again, a very active time as things were being set up so that everybody across Canada could access 211, and they can. Find Help also took on the work of connecting people in Manitoba, New Brunswick, and Newfoundland and Labrador. So we also we call those I forget the word that some of my colleagues use, but the extension provinces. So we also serve those provinces as well. And there was a very hardworking team of people across Canada making sure that the province, so BC and Alberta and Saskatchewan already had 211, and Nova Scotia had 211, PEI had 211, and those people got together to make sure that they could work it out so that everybody in across Canada could. So the provinces that didn't have, where can we partner with people to get this data? Somebody has the data somewhere. Let's put it together. Let's get people connected to it through 211.
So if you had a friend, a son out in BC, and they needed a food bank or something, you could go online here and find out what was available to them, and just go there, look for them. Here's what's here. Here it is, because so often when you are in that situation where you need the services, you need support. You're traumatized. It's life's not going well. So I'm very glad to hear that this coordination has happened and probably we're still working to make it even better.
Oh, so, there's a team of people, consistently working on, making the ability to get to 211, able for people out there, but also efficient in the background and working well with partners. So it's a good system.
Yeah, no, and I think quite complicated and lots of moving parts to it. But
that is true. That is true.
So, approximately, how many social services programs, community supports are in your database. And yeah, and how did something get added or taken away?
Sure. So what happens is that we have, I guess the data is really the foundation of what we can do and what we do. So collecting that information about the programs and services that exist in Central Region, there are about 20,000 pieces of information on programs.
Impressive.
So, and then across Ontario in total, there are approximately 60,000. So we have, in Ontario, there are 5 agencies regionally around the province who all have a share of collecting and maintaining some of that data. It's all put together. So that's the brilliant part about being in an integrated system. So not only, like you said, if you knew somebody in BC that needed 211, if you live in Richmond Hill and your mom lives in Guelph, you can find out that information about what's going on in Guelph, what is there for your mom in Guelph or in Wawa or wherever you happen to be, or to need help for somebody wherever they happen to be. Just to give a shout out to the other partners. So in Windsor, the city of Windsor actually runs the 211 program there. So they are the Southwest region. Community Connection Collingwood is Central East, which is more or less like a horseshoe around the GTA. And then you've got Find Help at doing the Central region. You've got CNEO, NCEO doing the eastern part of the province, so Ottawa, Kingston, Belleville, that area. And then in the north, you've got Lakehead Social Planning Council doing the northern region. So it's all very laid out, and all those partners are working together on the data and then also on the ability to answer the phone. So if somebody phones in, the next available agent or service navigator would take the call. So nobody's waiting on the phone just to get somebody in their region. Whoever's available will take that call. So all the service navigators can access the information across the province and give that information.
Okay.
Yeah, to anybody.
Okay, very interesting. So can you give us some examples of calls have come in? I think that would sort of make sense, help make sense of things.
Yeah, of course. I have been part of being on the line, as I told you, and also as well doing follow-up calls, which we haven't talked about yet, but we can, of course. But these are some of the follow-up calls that I was part of. So that would be, I might as well just say it now that I've tempted everybody with that. So a follow-up call would be, somebody calls, they're calling about food. We would always offer a follow-up call to someone if they're calling about needs for food insecurity. And, if they would like to, and that they say yes to a follow-up call, we would just check in with them maybe that same day, depending on the urgency of the situation, or maybe in 2 or 3 business days, just make sure they've made contact with the food bank, they've been able to register, they have a day to go and get some food, they still are, they're on the way to getting the service that they need. So that's what we would do with a follow-up call. And it could be about anything, but we do always offer follow-up calls to people who are calling about food insecurity, about mental health, about housing, some of those really difficult situations. But sometimes, you might have a senior on the line who is, just from the conversation you get, that perhaps that person is maybe a bit forgetful, or they're very anxious about getting through to someone on the phone. Well, I tried and I got this, this message and I wasn't sure which button to press. And so we can help people. We can do a 3-way warm transfer. So we get that person on the line, put them on hold, get through to say it's the home and community care service, then get them back on the line and have a 3-way conversation. Hi, I'm from 211. I'm helping Sue here. She needs to speak to someone about some of your services, and I'm just wanting to make sure that she actually gets to speak to someone. And then you leave them to it to have their conversation. So we just, we're the warm transfer, the helpers, the people who help people connect. So some of my call examples that I've been part of, I followed up with a student who had disabilities and needed a low-cost or free computer. So by the time I had spoken to the person, they'd been given some referrals, they had followed up on those referrals, and they were waiting to hear back from the this agency that was offering this service. And so, at that point, the person felt quite confident that they had made the connection and they were, and, I just supported that person and said, if too many days go by, feel free to call them again and just double check on where they're at with, helping you. So I think people also just want support and listening ear as well. That's something that we provide to people.
Mm-hmm.
Another woman called on behalf of her grandmother who needed a new pair of glasses. She'd been to the optometrist. She was eligible for a free optometrist visit because she was over 65, but she couldn't afford to get the new glasses made and with the prescription. So there is a program about that. I was able to let her know what she could do and just make sure she felt confident that her grandmother could make, and just explained how that worked, and so that her grandmother could get those glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Then another man who was a government-sponsored refugee, and he wanted information on colleges and courses. He wanted to upgrade his education, and he also wanted to check in on his education from his home country, how that would be accepted, or what he needed to do to maybe upgrade or to get Canadian qualifications. So, just again, this was a follow-up call on my behalf. So I was just checking to see that he felt good about knowing where to go, that he felt confident making that connection to the agency, and he did in that particular case. So we're just wanting to make sure that people actually get through to who they need to get through to.
Very good. Thank you for giving those examples. I think that helps with what do people call about? And I expect it's a whole range, but those are good examples.
Yeah, people call about just about anything. We do have funny ones too.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yes, but people do call about a wide range of issues.
Right. So what type of training, are there for someone like you, for the people who answer the phones?
Yeah. So many service navigators, we have many service navigators who are on the team who've been here for 10, 15, 20 years. They've been doing this work for a long time. But people who come, the newer service navigators who come, most of them have quite a good, solid understanding of the human service system. Some of them, are educated to a master's degree level. Some are, some of the data people are library science type people. So a lot of them come with a lot of education and capabilities. And then, of course, there's a lot of training that has to go on top of that. We have two systems. If you're a service navigator, you need to know how to access the data that we have. So we do use a taxonomy system, which is a classification system, not unlike what you have on a library book, but a classification system for human services. So people need to know what that is and how to use it, how to search the programs and services by the taxonomy, which is the most efficient way to do it. And also to use the actual system itself. And then, of course, there's the whole telephone system and how to use that. So that's quite a bit of, but then in addition, if you have a good understanding of the landscape of human services, that's super. But, if somebody's going to call you and talk to you about childcare, you need to understand that quite in depth as well. So a good understanding of all these various programs. So how to search for a food bank in Toronto. It's a little more challenging than you might think. Because there's many food banks in Toronto, which is good for people who need food that's close to them. But the other thing is, some of them have their eligibility. People in these postal codes can come to our food bank, or people on this side of the street, not that side of the street, which is the way they've done it. But, just you have to be able to make sure you give people the right information. Giving people the wrong information is not at all helpful. So how to search for a food bank in Toronto, how to understand what happens when someone gets an eviction notice, so drilling down into all of these various areas and understanding what they do, all the various levels of government, who does what, if you need a, recreation program, you're not necessarily going to talk to your MP. So just understanding who is doing what and how to access those things. So it is quite extensive. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
and
definitely.
ongoing as well, Marge.
Yes, that I can imagine. And so
Mhm.
I know from what my community involvement is that many people that are not even like doing well, but they do not, and there's not a general understanding of the system of who does what and what is out there. So that is
No,
so important with what
yeah,
you are doing. Many people here in Ontario in this area speak other languages. I walk around my block and I'll hear many other language other than English.
right.
And so often when you need a service, you are more anxious, and your English as a second language skills may not be great. So it's best if
Mhm.
you can speak that your native language. Yes, you provide the services, but what happens if someone calls up and is, speaking in Farsi? What happens?
Right. So we do have service navigators who do speak other languages. So I believe we're somewhere around 16 languages. We have people speaking up to, and we always have French. But if someone comes and is speaking Ukrainian, or someone is speaking Bengali or something like that, and either the person that we may have on staff is not on. I mean, we're 24/7, but not our 24/7 for any one person would be tough to do. So we call up the language line, and we can get an interpreter that would be able to speak with us, and the caller all at the same time. So we can have that three-way call again. This
Mm.
time we would have somebody. So as long as the person can say their language so that we can understand what they're saying, we can and put them on hold, get the language line, bring that person in, and have this three-way conversation. The service navigator would still be sort of I guess, emceeing the conversation, and saying, could you tell me a little bit about, what your situation is? And then the interpreter and that person would speak, and then the interpreter would give that back in English, or in
Mm-hmm.
English to the service navigator, and make sure that everybody is understanding one another and being able to give out that referral. Hopefully, we've got a referral for that person that will be a helpful program or service that they can pursue, and someone who is also going to be able to serve them in their language.
Right. Okay. Very good. Thank you for explaining that. I was wondering how that all works.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, and looking at your website, it says that inquiries are tracked anonymously, of course,
Mhm.
to see where there are needs or service gaps, or barriers. And you share this information to help make things better, to inform policy and funding decisions. Can you talk about that? Are there some examples? This sounds like a really positive thing.
Yes, yes, of course. So when somebody is speaking to a service navigator, or texting or chatting or emailing, so they would very likely have a conversation about where are you located, because so many services are serving a certain geographical location. So okay, you're in Richmond Hill. Okay, would you give me your postal code? Some people don't know their postal codes, or they don't. Or yes, we can give a postal code. That is actually a really good way for the service navigator to be able to search programs and services by having that postal code. The system is set up to do that the most efficiently. So we would know that information, so where that person is located. And then again, depending on what the situation is, we might know that it is a woman, it is an older female, it is somebody who's in their 30s. We might have to ask that age range, because of what that, what they're eligible for, what program is out there, and what they're eligible for. So that kind of information is available to us. Then if we've given a referral, we track what referral we've given. And then during the course of the conversation, the person might tell us something. Well, I went to so and so, and they didn't help me. They told me I wasn't eligible. So we can also find out what the unmet needs were sometimes. So what they need to find, what they tried, what hasn't worked, that kind of information. So there's a way to keep track of that in the conversation, or after you finish the conversation. And all of that aggregated data goes to making up what we call a snapshot. So we have been reporting out to people since 2020. I think those things were not, I think we were the snapshots had been thought of and created before COVID, but it ended up being a really helpful thing to be able to say, here's how many calls, or what percentage of calls were up or down since this time last year. Well, of course, in the pandemic, we had many more calls. And, here's what people are the top 5 needs that are happening in York Region in this 2-week period. At first, we were reporting those things out bi-weekly. Since the beginning of this year, I believe it was, we started just reporting out monthly, but we do report out about Toronto, York, Durham, and Toronto, Peel, I beg your pardon. Mm-hmm. And so anybody can search. We have I think it's a bit of a treasure trove. It's like it is a snapshot of what's transpired over the last 3 years. Yeah. So anybody can look at anything. If you wanted to look at what happened in Toronto of April of 21, you can go ahead and have a look.
Yeah.
Or Durham or York or whatever, you can compare and contrast. But it is a really helpful thing for the people, for the partners that we have. And we have many partners across the whole central region and beyond as well. And, they can see what the top 5 needs were, what the service navigators are hearing generally. So, this, I've just printed off the York snapshot. I'm just showing Marge the snapshot.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's impressive. I was I looked them up. This is, interesting data.
There's quite rich data there. So it's saying that in May 2023, the top need in York Region was utility assistance, and 23% of the calls from York Region were about utility assistance. 14% on food banks, 12% on government information services, so people wanting to know about, say, Service Ontario or Service Canada or something like that, 10% on crisis intervention and counseling, and 7% on paratransit programs. So just very interesting. And then next month it might all shuffle around, or there might, paratransit might not be there and something else will be there, like little clinics or something. And then I think this is a really good information. The service navigators are hearing about food security, requests for food programs and after hours meal programs, food meal services, specialized items for personal hygiene items, people experiencing homelessness, incontinence supplies and nutritional supplements, mental health support, immediate crisis intervention and counseling, and other needs and trends, assistance with budgeting and credit counseling needs, and assistance with finding furniture. So those are some of the things that, service navigators are hearing a lot of when they're talking to people. That's what is, mind when they reflect back on the month.
Right. Yeah. No, that's I think very important that that information is gathered. And I do believe that many of our elected officials at all levels really should be paying attention to that information. So I'm going to be telling people about it. But I'm thinking there are people, I've been asking around since I first met you at an event. It was a Family Services of York Region, invited you to come and speak. And there were a lot of service providers, people who work with vulnerable people. And I thought that was very important that you were there. I had heard a 2-on-1, but I really didn't know about it. I found it was just a great presentation. So I felt I have to reach out to you. And I see myself as a community connector. And, you do such a great job of that. But it's, part of your job is outreach. And so if there's an organization like a condo board or residents association, a faith-based group, primary care, offices, I think a lot of physicians should know about what you're doing as well. Certainly the Rotary Club, the Lions Club, all those should be talking to you. So am I right there? Should I tell all my friends who are working there?
Well, sure, Marge, I love you're a community connector. I just wanted to say that we do have a relationship with MPPs across the province. We do have, we are reaching out to school boards, we're reaching out to MPPs, we're reaching out, and communication is a tough one, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
nonstop. You just keep telling the next person and the next person. Yes, absolutely. If you were to tell somebody and they got in touch with me, I'd absolutely make sure that I'm not sure I can get everywhere,
Yeah.
but I can definitely help people out and connect them to the right information. Do a virtual call, be present at times. And, that's certainly what we want. We want just to keep telling people about this resource that is available to everybody in Ontario, and especially.
Yeah. Definitely. I think even just something in a newsletter on someone's website, on some of these organizations' websites. If you have problems, if you know of people, go check
Yeah.
them out.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
and definitely for some time, like for instance, in Durham region, they've just started a 311 program that's just coming up to full speed. And so, just making sure people understand making the right call. So when is it, 211s and 311s help each other and work together. So if somebody calls 311 and they actually need something that we can help them better with, we have that relationship that we will help each other with those calls. And if somebody calls 211 and asking about garbage pickups in Whitby, certainly the 211 person can find out that information and give it. That's not a problem. But, when to make the right call, 211, 311, 911, really important information that people need to know.
yeah. Okay. What is 311?
311 is for municipal programs. So, in York region, you have Access York, and
Yeah.
that's where people would call, and they would get all those regional type programs.
Mhm.
But again, like you said, and like I know, people don't know
No.
exactly
No.
who's providing what all the time.
No.
So
Definitely
if
not.
you needed to know when your garbage pickup or your recycling or where to sign up for soccer, or you need the health department because you want to talk about immunization or sexual health clinics or something like that, those would be calls to Access York or a 311 program, or anything if you live in the city of Toronto, anything the city of Toronto does. So that would be those folks. And then so does that answer your question?
That answers the question. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I thought I knew about what I'm doing, but no, there's so
You
much
do,
to
Mark, you
know.
do, you
Yeah,
do.
definitely. So, what about, I'm working with one organization called Help a Girl Out that is doing period poverty. And I think I asked you about that and you hadn't heard
Yeah,
of it. And I'm not surprised because they're
yeah,
focused in Brampton and you're in
yeah.
the other side of the
I'm
GTA.
on the flip side, yes.
Yeah. So, like, how does it's a newer organization, but doing great things. Like, how would something like that become part of the system?
Yes, well, we do have an inclusion policy. I know that,
Okay.
so we do mostly want to gather and maintain information about um, programs and services that help people generally,
Mhm.
that are usually not-for-profit or charitable organizations
Yeah.
that are offering that service, or government
Mhm.
organizations, or organizations that work with organizations like the TNN or something like that. So those kinds of pieces of information. Now, when a new organization starts up, if they've been working away for a year or more, I guess it's all about sustainability. So
Mhm.
it's really a lot of work to get something up and going. You don't want to be taking things down and putting things up all the time. So if that organization is sustainable, is funded with is a charitable organization, they've got a way to keep moving, we can definitely, after a year, we can put something in the database. And it's great for people to make sure that we know what these organizations are and what they're doing. At some point, within the pandemic, we didn't have a year. There were I can think of a small organization that started working in Pickering, and yeah, if people are connecting people to food, we need to get that up there. We can't wait for that year. So there is a bit of flexibility there.
Yep. Good.
And so for instance, we don't have every single Rotary Club in the, but we do have a way people can connect. There is one um, record where you can go into their search for
Mm-hmm.
their club,
Yeah.
say. Or for instance, we don't have every church or every place of worship. That would be crazy if we had to
Yeah.
do that. But if a place of worship does have a program where people who are not necessarily just members of that faith-based organization can get help, yes, then that is in the database. That would be included in the database.
Okay, that I think is a very good point to make there.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I just want, I just hope from our conversation, and I know you have a good following, that people know that 211 is an essential resource for Richmond Hill residents, for them and for the people they love who might live anywhere in the province, or their neighbors, any agencies that are out there that have people working with their feet on the ground and they want to help a client, they can call or contact 211. We help people, anybody who is, you can call for yourself, you can call for your neighbor, you can call for your grandmother, you can call for your client, whoever can get help from 211.
Yeah. Okay. Very important information. So we need to spread the word. I do like to end the podcast asking the same question of everyone who comes on. The question is, name one thing you really like about this community.
Well, Marge, as you know, I'm not in your community very often, but that day that you and I met at the community action table, I could see that Richmond Hill has a good collection of people with good hearts and a lot of energy who are working very hard to help those in the community who need help. And that is a beautiful thing. And I really appreciate that, about seeing that so clearly on that day that I came to Richmond Hill.
Yeah, very good. No, you came to be interacting with a really good group of people that day, but those good group of people, it extends beyond that one community center. So again,
yes, I'm sure it does. Yeah,
it does. Yes.
For sure.
So thank you very much, Michele, for taking the time to do this podcast. I think we had a very good conversation.
That was great. Thank you so much, Marge, for having me. I really appreciate you giving me some time to talk to people about 211.
Thank you for listening. I would very much appreciate you sharing this podcast. Please tune in next week as we continue to explore the community. Consider emailing me at Marge, M-A-R-J, at margeandre.com. I welcome suggestions for podcast guests. Stay well, stay connected.